Good afternoon. Welcome back to my no-name channel, and I'm Bruce. This is another Bali COVID-19 update for August 11th, 2021. And before we get to the numbers, let's start off with the state of restrictions. As you probably know, Monday night, Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Luhut, announced that PPKM 4 would be extended for another week until August 16th, day before Independence Day, for Java and Bali. And for certain districts and cities on other islands, the extended lockdown is going to last 2 weeks due to an uptick in new cases. So the extension is despite a decline in numbers. If you look at the numbers nationally, they're declining. If you look at the numbers in Bali, they're slowly declining, but still over 1,000, unfortunately. So the extension for 2 weeks on other islands, Luhut said, the challenges we are facing outside Java and Bali are much bigger. For example, the health infrastructural support. And if you've been to any place out there in what some people call the outer islands, I'm not sure that they would like that term, but anyway, you'll see the infrastructure, the health infrastructure there is pretty sparse in places, really sparse in other places. So according to Luhut, the data shows that there's been a 59.6% decline in the number of new cases compared with July 15th, when we hit a high in the country of 56,757 cases in one day. However, the deaths remain high, and so that's a worry, and that's one of the reasons that the restrictions have been extended. Throughout this week, the government is going to gradually open malls and trade centers in Jakarta, Bandung, Surabaya, and Semarang up to 25% capacity. However, there's a plan to only let vaccinated people in the mall, and they have to be between the ages of 12 and 70. If you're under 12, you're not going to be allowed in. If you're over 70, you're not going to be allowed in. There's another story about this. I don't know, I may get a chance to talk about it later, but it may be pushed off till Sunday. Export-oriented businesses will be allowed to operate at 100% as long as the workers are split into 2 shifts. Religious congregation at worship places is limited to 25% of capacity. As we see the numbers begin to go down over in Java and Bali, we're seeing the percentage of total cases going up in other places. So right now, there is 46.5% of the current active cases are in other provinces besides Java and Bali. For examples, Central Sulawesi recorded a 37% rise during the first 9 days of the month. North Sumatra, East Nusa Tenggara, South Kalimantan, those places have seen surges by as much as 15% or more. The central government plans on deploying ferries to act as floating isolation facilities for COVID-19 patients in cities such as Medan, Sorong, Bandar Lampung, and Bitung. So the rules are basically the same. Outdoor dining is okay, but only 2 people at a table. I think that sounds new to me. And for the 30 minutes like there was before, there's the question of malls, and so malls in places in Java, I don't know if this is going to affect Bali actually yet, with the need to be vaccinated and to prove it, and to be between 12 and 70. So I'm not sure that that's going to work here yet. Otherwise, things seem to be basically the same. No big difference. And if you're here, you know, in a lot of places you wouldn't even know we have any restrictions going on. And I've said this constantly. You really can't tell in a lot of places that there are any restrictions. Unless you're in places like Kuta, for example, parts of Ubud where you go by, if you watch YouTubers or influencers when they're riding their motorbikes or walking, and you'll see shop after shop after shop closed. Well, this extension of the restrictions didn't surprise anybody. Everybody expected it. What's going to happen on the 17th? Is there going to be a surprise ending of the restrictions as a celebration for Independence Day? Or will they continue, but even looser than they are now? No one knows. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. So another week of uncertainty. And let's take a look at the numbers. The 7-day average for new positive cases is constant at 1,244, which is a good sign. 7-day average for deaths went down to 35, another good sign. And for all of Indonesia, the number of new cases, 32,081, and 2,048 deaths. So deaths still over 2,000. That's not good. 32,000 for new cases. Okay, so we look like we're steady there right now in the low 30s. And the total number of individuals tested for all of Indonesia was 146,200 and a 22% positivity rate. So still too high. Vaccination numbers for Bali, 3,095,837 first doses, so 71.7% of the population. Second doses, 1,166,372, 27%. So we're up to 27%. And yesterday, 30,324 people were vaccinated. Okay, so good numbers so far. Let's look at the new positive cases for Bali. Not so good. 1,411. So yesterday it was just over 1,000. The day before, just over 1,000. So we got a jump again. So we're still not getting below 1,000, and that's one of the reasons why Luhut is coming here, along with the deaths, and that's coming up. That report. Recoveries, 1,576. Deaths, 36. And current active cases, 12,736. So even though things are getting better in Java, they're not getting better here. And new cases were 1,403 Indonesians and 8 foreigners. So we got some foreigners today. And of the cases, 1,180 were local transmissions, 221 cases from domestic travelers, and 10 from international travelers. Okay, so still getting a lot of domestic cases. And by Regency, Denpasar 546, Buleleng 194, Badung 174, Gianyar 117, Tabanan 106, Jembrana 82, Karangasem 69, Klungkung 62, and Bangli at the best 32. Okay, so those are the numbers for today. Okay, oh, they're steady, not great. That 1,411, the numbers here going up and down, and we're at 71%, and 27% total vaccinations. So we've got to see these numbers come down. And what about vaccines and vaccinations? Good news on that front. Indonesia will receive 183 million doses of vaccine from September to December. So, according to Presidential Chief of Staff Muldoko, Indonesia will get around 70 million doses in September, followed by 40 million in October, 35 million in November, and 38 million in December. And President Jokowi hopes eventually to ramp up the vaccination rate from 1 million to 2 million. It should be 2 million now. I don't know if that's actually happening. That's his target, was to do 2 million in August. Up to 5 million a day as the vaccines come rolling in. And what about the much maligned Sinovac vaccine? Well, a new Indonesian study shows that Sinovac's COVID-19 vaccine is 85% effective against symptomatic illness among older folk. So the Sinovac vaccine is arguably the least favorite of all the vaccines available here. And as I mentioned a few videos ago, a recent study cast some doubts about its long-term effectiveness. However, a new study shown that Sinovac's vaccine is 85% effective against symptomatic illnesses and 92% effective against hospitalization among older people in Jakarta. Additionally, Sinovac is 95% effective in preventing deaths. Now, I think this study was done before we have the big problems with the Delta, so we have to see how that's going to work out. So let's be positive about this, but guardedly positive. However, the effectiveness against symptomatic illness is reduced to 35% if only the first shot is given. These figures are based on a study involving 86,936 Jakarta residents aged 60 and above between March and April of this year. Vaccine effectiveness refers to the performance of a vaccine in a population under a real-world situation, while vaccine efficacy refers to the performance of a vaccine in a controlled clinical trial situation, according to the World Bank. So, some good news about the Sinovac. The study also revealed that chances of a vaccinated older person dying of COVID-19 are up to 15 times less than someone who's not vaccinated. However, Jakarta's figures were higher than those reported in a study in Chile, where it was found that 58.5% effective in preventing symptomatic illness among 8.6 million Chileans who received first shots between February and July. The vaccine was 86% effective against hospitalization, however, and 86% effective in preventing deaths. So, what did I say last week? What vaccine is the best? Right now, any vaccine that you can get, and we'll see where we go from there. But good news for the Sinovac. Let's see what comes out of studies done in terms of how it's effective against the Delta variant. And what about the rest of the country? So there's been this focus on Java and Bali, and of course because we either live here or people want to come and visit, so yeah, this is a focus on Bali. But what about the other parts of Indonesia? So we're understandably focused on that, but we need to remember that Bali is just one small island out of 17,000. So what happens in the other parts of the country affect us. They affect our friends, our family. They affect tourism, because the government has been trying before pre-pandemic days to spread tourism out among the country, and so you have Raja Ampat, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the Maluku's, a great place to visit, and I'd love to get back there after the virus is over. So as the numbers go down in Java and stay pretty steady in Bali, the virus is spreading fast in outer regions, and it's spurring a rush for vaccination among a limited supply, because the vaccinations have been going on in Java and Bali. That's been a focus. And in this article, there was a mention of Cristianto Senda, who lives in a mountainous area in East Nusa Tenggara. He made a trip to a local health facility for his second shot, only to find there wasn't enough doses available. So he said, "My worry is people's enthusiasm will turn into apathy. Many walk for hours or paid for expensive transport to get the vaccine. Maybe once, twice they will still try, but after a while people might give up altogether." And so we've got to get that vaccines out to the other parts of the country. Almost half of new daily cases are now found outside the most populated island, Java. As the virus spreads throughout the country, access to vaccines still limited because the focus has been on here, Java and Bali. In Jakarta, about 78% of the population has gotten at least their first dose. In East Kalimantan, where daily infections are catching up to Jakarta's numbers, only 15% have had their first dose, according to the health ministry. And in East Nusa Tenggara, that's down to 11%. Local media reported starts and stops in East and South Kalimantan's inoculation process due to a lack of supply. And there was a report of hundreds of people trying to break through a steel gate in North Sumatran city of Medan while screaming for vaccines. And so we've got to get to spread out. And the good news is that we have a lot of vaccine coming in, and so I think the government is going to start to focus on getting outside now as Bali is getting up, and we hope that we'll have at least 70% fully vaccinated by the end of September. But 70% is still, as you know, if you've watched my videos before, still questionable, and I'm going to talk about that not today, but on Sunday, because there's some new interesting information out about the idea of herd immunity. So as I mentioned when I was talking about the restrictions, COVID cases in Bali and Greater Malang have not come down, according to Pak Luhut, and so he says, I will visit both. He said that these are two areas that need further intervention, and so he is going to show up. He said, furthermore, I need to explain that the decline in cases in hospital care has also occurred in a number of agglomerations in Java, Bali, except there are still problems in Malang and also in Bali. Pak Luhut also said that there's been good results from the extension of the restrictions, and that can be seen in the data, as I said, 59.6%. So according to him, this is good momentum. It needs to be maintained, and for that reason, that's why the restrictions were extended. So Pak Luhut is going to show up here in Bali. When? I don't know. Maybe he was here already today. I'm not sure. And what about Buleleng? So yeah, one of the things that people have said on social media, you find this a lot, is that the enforcement of restrictions seems to be easing up. For example, I've been reading reports of people driving around without helmets, not wearing masks, going into shops, and staying too long in restaurants. Well, Buleleng authorities have been doing some checks, not making local people happy. So on Saturday, a team consisting of the police and the civil police and the transportation agencies and a few others, and a swab team, carried out a joint patrol activity in the context of disciplinary action to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in Buleleng. Officers conducted rapid antigen tests in crowded places such as Kopi Manji, and you'll see it here. And so that was on Saturday, and then later on Saturday as well, the effort of randomized rapid tests carried out by TNE was apparently not receiving positive response from the local community. Some people chose to run away when they saw the task force coming. So that's not good, because who knows, were they positive? As a result, the target of increasing the test as an early preventive measure is in danger of not being able to reach its target. In fact, in the past week, TNE has been aggressively conducting rapid tests, such as in the Banyuasri market and Anyar market. Anyar market's right down here. Banyuasri market is the new big one that I meant to go. If you've looked at some of my drone videos, you've seen it in the drone video. It's a big place. I haven't been there yet. And random testing is being done at the popular PP beach just west of the city. And what about Bali's post-pandemic future? Because this will end eventually, I hope. Is it going to be the same old, or is there going to be differences? Academics and others looking at the tourist industry over the years have, including sometimes government officials, have said that Bali needs to be less dependent on tourism. We need to stop being a one-pony show. Now, an official from the Bank of Indonesia is saying the same thing. Maybe this will get through to people. So, post-corona pandemic, Bali is expected to no longer depend on tourism. I'm not sure that expected is the right word. Bali is advised to no longer be dependent on tourism, I think is a better thing. In the second quarter of 2021, our economy went up 2.83% from negative 9.81% in the previous quarter. So good news, the economy, and that's domestic tourism mostly. However, the head of the Bank of Indonesia Representative Office for the province of Bali, Pak Nugroho, said the other day that the third quarter of 2021, he expects economic growth to slow down in connection with the mobility restriction policy that's been undertaken to keep the spread of new variants down. The decline in growth is expected to occur in business fields directly related to tourism activities. No surprise there. And he said, the lesson is the increasing urgency of economic transportation for the province of Bali. Okay, he's saying let's change things. He said that the dependence on the tourism sector is increasing the vulnerability of Balinese economy, where historically Bali's economic performance has decreased when experiencing shocks. And he mentioned Bali Bombing 1, Bali Bombing 2, and Mount Agung a few years ago. So in order to increase the resilience of the Balinese economy, he said it's necessary to develop new source growth engines, and he mentioned specifically agriculture, creative industry, digital economy, and education, yes. He also noted that in order to accelerate the recovery of economic performance, these prerequisites need to be implemented for the COVID-19 health protocol disciplines. And so he said, first, encourage tourism actors to obtain the CHSE certificate, and that's being done here. Second, to encourage SMEs on board so as to expand marketing. Third, accelerate the realization of regional spending and infrastructure development. And we've got a lot of infrastructure that we could develop here. Fourth, encourage the agricultural sector to implement GAP, which stands for Good Agricultural Practice, using digital technology in production, digital farming, and market their products through e-commerce and marketplaces. And you see this in Korea, where people in cities can contact farmers directly and have their produce delivered direct to their door in Seoul, for example. Or if they want to take a lovely drive on a weekend with the family, they can put an order online and show up and pick it up themselves. And so that has been very productive for the Koreans. That's something that we could do here. Something where you could get young people, for example, to go out and help farmers get online, learn how to use WhatsApp, make web pages, Instagram, TikTok, advertise their businesses, and have a way where you can transport this. So we can working with Gojek, or they could use their own drivers. So there's a lot of different ways that this can be developed here for the agricultural sector. Really good idea. And finally, fifth, encourage non-cash payments. And so that's being done everywhere in the world, and so Indonesia is going to get there. Okay, so good advice from the Bank of Indonesia. I hope the government takes this on board and works on developing those non-tourist sectors of the economy so that we're not going to be in a situation where the next pandemic comes and we're zapped again. Okay, time for a wrap-up. That's it. This is Wednesday, keeping this short. So what have we got? Okay, so the restrictions have extended. I haven't talked about them in detail because they're basically the same as before. And there's been no change in terms of letting people in on B211, still not happening. There are some minor changes for people flying around in the country and things, but I'm not going to talk about that. If you're interested in that, I will, when I can find it, put up the documents in the description box below or as a link. But there's really no huge changes. So, one more week, right? We've got until the 17th, well, the 16th is the end, and then 17th and Independence Day, and as I mentioned at the start of this video, who knows, maybe the government will do a surprise, but unless these numbers drop way down, and I don't know if the government is still using the 10,000 mark for total country in order to really loosen this, but you see that they're loosening things up a little bit for Java. And Bali is Bali. And as I've said earlier and many other times, in a lot of places you really can't tell what's going on. Enforcement, lax sometimes and pretty on market other times. Like the segment on what's happening in Singaraja and going to places that are crowded and doing a snap test to see what's happening, make sure people aren't infected and gathering together. Okay, so we need that enforcement. There's no point in having these restrictions if they're not being enforced. The segment on what the Bank of Indonesia said about diversifying the economy, really important. I really hope that this is where the government is going to go in the future instead of the same old. As soon as we open up, more hotels being built, more villas being built, more fun parks being built. Do we want to turn Bali into a theme park? The magic of this is still in the villages, in the tradition, in the way people interact with each other. It's not hanging out at an F1 racing track or going down a water slide, although my kids would probably say different. So, yeah, let's hope that the economy gets diversified, that the government picks this up from what the Bank of Indonesia said. Maybe they'll listen to the Bank of Indonesia if they don't listen to the intellectuals here on the island, the academics over at Udayana University and other places. So, we'll see what's going to happen there. Is Bali going to open up soon? No, obviously not. Is September a possibility? Yeah, but I'm not going to go through the same thing. I'm just going to tell you, I would go with December, but who knows? Nobody knows what's happening these days. So some good news with the millions, 100 million, 183 million vaccines coming in here over the next few months for the rest of the year. And the vaccination program, the rush to vaccinate everybody is continuing to go on. That's great. The weekly extension of the restrictions is pretty irritating for most people, I think, but that's the way the government's going to go. They're playing it cautious. This has been a better past few days than before. I'm kind of disturbed about this 1,400 number yesterday, but we're getting the vaccinations up there. The deaths came down just a little bit in Bali, still at 2,000 in Indonesia. That's not good. Trying to keep a positive outlook here today. It's another beautiful day here, and people are being vaccinated. My wife goes in for her second shot tomorrow, and so we should see Buleleng's numbers going up. You saw in Sunday's report that Buleleng's numbers were pretty far down there. Buleleng's numbers should be going up because there's really a push here to get everybody vaccinated, and so we want to see that. So wherever you are, wear a mask, keep social distancing, follow the protocols, get vaccinated, please, and stay safe, be kind to someone today. Thanks for viewing. See you next time.